Welcome to today's episode of Genius or Jank. As always, I am your host, ThrabenU, aka Phil Gallagher, and today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. Alright, silly bit over. Today we have an interesting deck list from an anonymous donor who wanted to see a Mono Black Regisaur Reanimator deck list with a transformational sideboard into a fair creature beatdown deck. So there's a lot going on here, and we're going to try to determine whether this is awesome deck building or just a little bit too janky to work. And the anonymous donor has put a bounty on each match, so I get a little moolah for each match that I win in an attempt to make this video as competitive as possible. So, good old Reginald, Rotting Regisaur, our zombie dinosaur friend, is a fantastic card to cast off a Dark Ritual. And we've done this many times in various Mono Black Stompy and Stompy adjacent deck lists. The idea here being that on turn 1, you can Dark Ritual out a Rotting Regisaur. Turn 2, you discard one of either Griselbrand or Archon of Cruelty, and then you reanimate it on turn 3. Your opponent not only has to deal with this big dumb Rotting Regisaur, but then an even bigger and even dumber friend is coming afterwards. And you'll notice that this deck doesn't quite look like a traditional Reanimator deck list. It is not in red, which is the typical way you build this deck for Faithless Looting, and a lot of times you have a splash color, either white for Serenity or blue for Show and Tell, and sometimes even green for like the Abrupt Decay type cards. You want something that can answer your problems. Well, this deck's design is supposed to say, I know my opponent is bringing Graveyard Hate, and I'm not going to care. So let's pull out the sideboard for a minute and take a good look at what's going on here. Essentially, the game plan is to board in 12 creatures that don't care about being reanimated, and you replace a lot of your fatties and maybe something like your Entombs with a playset of Sheoldred the Apocalypse, Dalthy Voidwalker, and Opposition Agent. So Opposition Agent early can stop your opponent from fetching or otherwise tutoring a critical part of their deck list. Dalthy Voidwalker has Shadow, making it good against initiative decks. And Sheoldred is just Sheoldred. Sheoldred slaps. We've established that many times. So one of the primary differences between this deck and a traditional Black-Red Reanimator deck list is because we are going to play all of these persistent creatures post sideboard, and we're not just trying to like do one thing and then immediately win. We're going to be trying out Chrome Mox today instead of Lotus Petal. The initial build of this deck list had Ancient Tombs in it, an entire playset, and after goldfishing, and then like every time that I had a hand that had like Ancient Tomb, Dark Ritual, Entomb, Reanimate, I just like cried myself to sleep just like a little bit, just a few sad tears. And I realized that Ancient Tomb just wasn't going to work in this deck list, despite being conceptually interesting. I'm a little on the fence about Agadeem's Awakening. This was something from the original deck list that was submitted to me. The synergy with Chrome Mox is very clear, but I'm not sure how much life loss we can afford in this deck list with like Thoughtseize and Reanimate and Griselbrand being in the deck list already. But some of that is going to be offset in post-sideboard games by Sheoldred, so I'm not exactly sure where that leaves me overall on my thoughts on this. I decided I'm going to try it, and like we'll treat it as a thought experiment for whether or not this is good. This deck is a deck sometimes that can just play a tap land and pass the turn on turn 1 and then do big dumb things on turn 2, so maybe it's okay, maybe it's not okay. I goldfished about 10 games while tuning up this deck list, and it was okay in those games. I think with that said, we're going to go ahead and hop into the matches and see how they feel. Hopefully we Sheoldred some people. Hopefully we put some Arcana Cruelties into play. If you're new here, or if you're a regular watcher and you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. I'm trying to hit some analytics goals, and if you're a regular, throw me a like before this video begins. It's the easiest way to support my content for free. Let's battle. Oh, baby. And 1. Game 1. Dark Ritual, Regisaur, Upkeep, discard Griselbrand, crash in for 7, reanimate Griselbrand. Oh, Eeperino. Here we go. Alright, we are playing against a blue deck. Counterspells are a thing. My opponent counterspells a Rotting Regisaur, though. Oh, it's elves? It's elves? Elves. Elves.
Historically, a very fast Griselbrand has been good against elves. Second Dark Ritual doesn't do anything here, right? Yeah, Second Dark Ritual doesn't do anything here. Alright. Dark Rit. Sir Reginald. Zombie Dinosaur. PhD. Esquire. Is now in play. My opponent has tapped and untapped their lands like 3 times now. So I'm not sure what they're doing. They're also probably not sure what they're doing. A lot of Dryad Arbor. Alright, upkeep. We'll discard a Griselbrand. I want this. Maybe I can find a way to get that into play this turn. Be a little tough. Alright, opponent goes to 12. I believe I am supposed to do this like this. And animate dead the Griselbrand. Drawing the 7 is so much more reasonable if I'm already not at a lower life total. Living the dream. Let's find some fun things. Multiple collective brutalities? Oh baby. Dark Ritual. Let's cast one of these. Let's escalate with all 3 modes. Do that. Attempt to kill a Dryad Arbor first. Lose some life. Pay the mana. Discard an Archon. And a Griselbrand. Where is your snuff out now? We'll take natural order. Alright. Make a land drop. Just reanimate Archon now. And do this whole thing. Is going ham. Proof of concept. Hard checkmark. Nice. So I'm going to take a second and I'm going to look at what sideboard hate elves lists have been playing recently to get a feel for whether or not I want to go, like how hard I want to go in on this creature plan. Excuse me, I don't think I quite cut the mic on that one. So it looks like they're on a playset of Leyline of the Voids. I think for game 2, I am going to become a transformer. We can go Archons, Griselbrands, Entombs out. Do something approximating this. What's the last 3 cards that are going to come out? Exhumes, probably. And I have honestly decent plays versus elves, and then I can go back to Reanimator for game 3 when I'm on the play if I want. I really wish I had like Plague Engineer for this matchup specifically, but I don't know that Plague Engineer is a super great card in Legacy right now. It is 4 mana on turn 1, which is Thoughtseize and Rotting Regisaur. I will draw 1 more card so I can discard whatever my card is on my next upkeep, then play land and sudden edict a creature too. Yeah, this is totally fine. Welcome to my villain era on the channel. Let's fucking go. Oh, it's Fiend Artisan Elves. Build will actually be slightly worse. Or, sorry, their build will be slightly better at playing a fair creature game versus me. Well, always swamp. If I'm willing to stay on 1 land, I can just go 3, 4, 5, 6 mana, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. Let's start with a Dark Ritual and Thoughtseize my opponent and shape my hand from there. Plague Engineer's Death Touch is annoying. Fiend Artisan will get bigger fast. Opponent actually doesn't have access to black mana right now for Plague Engineer. I just take the Green Sun and try to leave them with stuff stranded in hand, which I think is what I'm going to do. Also doesn't put a creature in the graveyard. So, sudden edict you, and we are all in on Regi. So, opponent has reasonable draws, but they miss here a good portion of the time. I discard my swamp. I'll discard that opposition agent too, but opponent is on a 3-turn clock from Rotting Regisaur, and one of their lands doesn't currently produce mana. So we'll see if this works. That allows a Fiend Artisan to hit play, and it can allow Plague Engineer to hit play next turn. Oh, they're doing that differently than I thought they would. Not a Bayou. They can do some chump blocking with Regisaur, though. Or against Regisaur, rather. Alright. That's a decent draw. I will probably need more mana. I will probably have to play another spell of some kind here. Let's go ahead and play this. They know, pass the turn. And we'll see how scary this card gets. It's activated at sorcery speed, so I will get to see whatever it is coming. That's fine. 2 mana for a Once Upon a Time. Finding a Reclaimer. And then the Reclaimer is being sacrificed. Trying to scale up the Fiend Artisan. I think my opponent just whiffed, right? They activated that, but another Dryad Arbor. Yeah, opponent says GG's. Yeah, they activated that for a low number, thinking that they could go and get their other Dryad Arbor, but they had already this other Dryad Arbor is already in their graveyard. Okay, proof of concept. This deck works.
Today's video is sponsored by moxfield.com. This is the place where I keep all of my deck lists, and I really love the fact that I can sort these just so efficiently into folders because I make a lot of deck lists, folks, and knowing like where these decks are is very valuable for me, as well as my viewers who are trying to hunt down, my EDH decks, legacy decks, or whatever. I love this place as a deck hosting website, and please consider checking them out.
Alright, my opening hand has no mana sources here. This just has to be a mulligan. This has Swamp, Entomb, Reanimate, Unmask to protect. This is going to be a keep. I think I'm pitching my Exhume here. Ooh, and I am on the play. I think I'm going to unmask my opponent. Pitching my land here. Metamorph. Huh. I think I take that. I don't want my opponent metamorphing something cool that I do. And then we'll just plan on end of turn Entomb into Reanimate. Not sure if I'm going for Archon or Griselbrand yet. I think I'm interested in Archon because of Retrofitter Foundry making a bunch of pump blockers, but drawing 7 and reloading my hand also sounds really good. Alright, immediate Urza Saga. And I assume Retrofitter Foundry Mox Opal. Alright, step 1. Step 2. Our opponent's a fan of the content. I will reward them with a big dome creature real fast. That's what everyone wants to see, right? That's what I want to see. Go Entomb. I am going to go with the Archon. The repeated Edict effect just seems nice here. Lotus Petal is not a bad draw. I am fine with Thought Seizing first, just to make sure no nonsense has happened. Hope of Girapar is a cheap creature. Jete is just like woefully too slow here. I'm actually just going to take the Hope so that my opponent can't play it as a second body next turn. I'll reanimate an Archon of Cruelty. This deck is so sweet. Jete is now gone. We know the contents of my opponent's hand exactly. And every turn I have an active Edict effect. Opponent could have a Spellbomb or equivalent that they could search up with Urza Saga, so that is a thing that I do need to be aware of. Ooh, that's real good. We will get real cute this turn if I do draw any black card here. Nice. The opponent goes to 8. Second main phase. Cast a Chrome Mox. Imprint Regi. Animate Dead. Targeting Phyrexian Metamorph. Oh, this deck is so fun. We have gotten a yikes from my opponent. So the Animate Dead enters play. I copy Archon of Cruelty, forcing them to discard that Ancient Tomb. And now very fun things have happened. My opponent is making a token, putting them to 3 life. I guess a Spellbomb could be really awkward. Yeah, good. So if my opponent had a blue Spellbomb, I don't know if they have blue in their deck, but in theory, if they had a blue Spellbomb because I took this play, they could bounce their Phyrexian Metamorph to hand, replay Metamorph, Archon me. Maybe I shouldn't have actually done that. Maybe that was a misplay. I don't know. They haven't shown me an actual color in their deck. They might be colorless. So these and these are probably fine versus Urza Saga Construct tokens. this is pretty medium against them. I haven't seen a good portion of my opponent's deck. They're probably on a couple of Urza Saga tutor bullets for reanimation stuff. I think when I'm on the draw, I am going to board out this stuff and board in my transformational sideboard, and when I'm on the play, I go back to Reanimator, I think. So that was those out, Exhumes out, Entombs out, and we have become a Transformer. Yeah, this hand is going to be a keep. I have a couple different ways I can play it out. It depends on like the value of opposition agent based on my opponent's turn 1 play. I don't need to play opposition agent on turn 1 if that's the case. Retrofitter Foundry is fine. Another Sheoldred. From Mox, Imprint Sheoldred, land drop, Dark Ritual, Sheoldred turn 1. Seems pretty reasonable. Alright. Sheoldred, land drop, Dark Ritual, Sheoldred. I don't think I unmask my opponent here, as some amount of the time unmask is played next turn to play opposition agent, so that my opponent can't actually fetch things out with Retrofitter Foundry. We'll see how this goes. I'm a little worried about like this just keeping up with the card quality in my opponent's deck. Are we? Oh. Okay. All right. Okay. Welcome to this weird world. So this is a gain 2 draw 2 situation, so it doesn't actually end up having a huge impact on the game. From Mox, put a Dark Ritual under here. I don't think I attack. I don't think I attack. I don't think I attack. I have like these sudden edict is not gonna be great. We'll see how this goes. All right, let's always yield to Sheoldred triggers at this point. They're not doing a lot. Okay. So here's to hoping this is now a big play. I will also get to take a look at my opponent's deck list, which is a pretty big deal because I don't really know what they're doing yet. I've seen almost entirely colorless cards. Wow. They are relatively light on Graveyard Hate. They do have Mindbreak Traps. So I'm going to go back to Reanimator for game 3, I think. So, oh wow, I get to see my opponent's hand now. That has changed. Take another picture here. It was always supposed to be that way, it just didn't actually work that way. I think I Pithing Needle Urza Saga. I would have deduced that it was in their hand already looking at this. So this will hang out in exile for a little while. There is the Urza Saga. Opponent also does not want to trade Sheoldreds. Is reasonable. Alright. A little bit of an awkward turn. I just have to play this for Urza Saga-based reasons. So this construct is going to be annoying. Bigger than a lot of my stuff. I actually attempt an attack here. Put myself in the situation where if I draw another Sheoldred, my next Sheoldred will be good. Okay. Opponent accepts the trade. That shrinks this by 1, which matters in the short term a little bit. My opponent's hand is pretty weak right now. They do have the better board, but they're like very much not the beatdown right now. I am. That probably changes in another turn cycle or so. Ooh, that's a good top deck. My opponent now has the larger creatures and a bit of like scaling. They are wastelanding their own Urza Saga. That shrinks this. Don't quite understand that play. I don't understand this attack either. I'm going to trade with this token because I just can't later. And then I hope for a reasonable top deck. Is not a reasonable top deck. So let's unmask. This makes a 1/1 that is more valuable than Mindbreak Trap as of right now. Now, punchies are still going to happen, and my opponent is going to hit me relatively hard. And it's just all a question of, like, can I top deck better than them? Also, how deep on life loss with Ancient Tomb are they going to go? Because I do have things like Sheoldred and Collective Brutality that can finish them off if they tap Ancient Tomb too many times. That's actually kind of an interesting question. I guess this is technically some banked life gain. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Opponent is at 6. If opponent taps Ancient Tomb one more time, they are in danger of dying to a decent number of my top decks. At the same time, they also kind of do need to tap the Ancient Tomb to make the clock appropriate, right? Because 6 plus 6 is 12, that's not a 2-turn clock. Whereas, like, putting 2 artifacts in play somehow, probably involving 1 or multiple Ancient Tomb activations, is a 2-turn clock. That's not great for them. Alright, they are going for it. I have my opponent dead to Collective Brutality X2, Sheoldred X3, Animate dead X4. If I draw one of them. Womp. So, 5, 6, 7, 8. The shadow, so it can't block. My opponent goes to 1, unfortunately, and then I think they have stabilized the game. The only way I win here is if they psych themselves out here. So at beginning of combat, I'm going to go ahead and untap 3 things. And untap them and see if we can get cheeky and make my opponent think about something. Thought was planted. There was hesitation. But they are in a situation where they kind of have to go for it no matter what. Rat. That was very tight margins. I wonder if I would have won if opponent says nice bluff. Had to try. I wonder if I would have won this game if I would have cast the Unmask early on. Like, if my opponent had the Phyrexian Metamorph at that time and didn't Sheoldred. Alright. So for this game, Sheoldred's out. Opposition Agents out. Dalthy Voidwalker's out. All the unfair stuff in, and the last 3 were copies of Sudden Edict. So it looks like my opponent has 4 Mindbreak Traps, 1 Soul Guide Lantern as the big things that I have to worry about. Warping Whale is a 1 of. Pithing Needle is a 1 of. Surgical is a 2 of. I still think I'm supposed to go back in on the graveyard-based strategy because my opponent's Nettle Cysts and Cranial Platings, now that I've seen those 2, are just going to make my bear creature beatdown plan not super viable. This hand doesn't actually do anything, despite having a reasonable mix of lands and spells, whereas this one very much does. This is going to be a keep. Second Chrome Mox is going away here. So this is going to be land, Dark Ritual, Rotting Regisaur. And that plays around Mindbreak Trap completely. I may be supposed to Chrome Mox on my own turn, but I don't think I like doing that. I really just want to have flexibility. I think that matters a lot. Well, that's a lot of chump blockers for Rotting Regisaur, which is pretty annoying. I think I still get rid of this. Despite the fact that it can get some stuff out of the way. A little inconvenient. Start doing some damage here. Alright, goodbye Ornithopter. And then we'll go ahead and start setting up for the future. And then I can entomb either a Griselbrand or an Archon. I think an Archon. And then more Hellbent for Rotting Regisaur purposes, which is pretty good. The Hope not going to come in? Okay, yeah. I will go ahead and go to 19 here. That's annoying. These Metamorphs are really good. Alright, I will respond to that by casting an Entomb. I think it's still Archon. It's very close, though. It's, like, awkward because my opponent can get Graveyard Hate here. Ugh. That Metamorph kind of ruined my plans. Ugh, and now I'm mana short of doing this. I think I let my opponent discard cards with that and then trade defensively in an attempt to draw a mana source with this. My opponent's brew is really cool. Phyrexian Metamorph is brutal. Probably pretty good anti-initiative tech. Maybe I should try Phyrexian Metamorph in an initiative deck. Alright, here's the Urza Saga token. And I think my opponent is pretty obligated to get Soul Guide Lantern. Soul Guide takes out Archon and then sits around for later. Alright. I am correct. Yeah. I wish I just would have played straight Reanimator for all 3 games here, though. Oh, wow. Shadow Spear is brutal. Okay, opponent is not even going to trade Regisaur. They're just going to kind of keep me locked under my own Regisaur, which is fair. I think at this point I'm dead. I'm not quite willing to concede yet, but as soon as this can attack into Rotting Regisaur, my opponent is just so very safe. And that happens as soon as Shadow Spear is equipped. Oh. I don't think that's the time to cast that spell. You cast that in my next draw step. Oh, I guess if you're about to discard with Rotting Regisaur, like, that's fine. Never mind. I take that back. Bonus play makes sense. So, they get to equip this here. Or here, honestly, if they want. It doesn't matter too much. They get to equip it. They get to bash in. And I am sad. If they are going with Regisaur, I will trade. But boy, that does not feel like a good trade. So my hope is to be able to reanimate a Rotting Regisaur before this destroys me. I mean, that's it. Animate dead, target Rotting Regisaur, and then see if my opponent wants to let me have that. It's very reasonable to just let me have this and keep that around for later, but it's also reasonable to just say no and just leverage the onboard 4/4 that's likely to grow. This is still technically a game. I can have a god draw of Entomb into something else. Retrofitter Foundry is very bad for me. Takes 6 this turn. Unless my opponent just wants to convert Ornithopter into a 4/4, which is also reasonable. Yikes. I don't think I'm on outs anymore. So my opponent makes a 4/4. I take 9 in combat, go to 3. I don't think there's a singular draw that really saves me from that position. Etched Champion. Opponent brought that back in after seeing my fair creature stuff, so now I take 10, and this just has protection from all colors. I really like opponent's deck design here. GG's. Sweet deck. Okay, this is round 3. We're 1-1. I'm definitely keeping this hand, but there's a few different ways that I can play it depending on what my opponent plays here. Alright, so we are playing against the initiative, and that is a turn 1 Thalia. So on my turn 2, I can Thoughtseize myself and put one of these into my graveyard, or I could just play an Archon now. I think with a Thalia in play, I have to make the land drop, and I'm fine Thoughtseizing myself on turn 2. Probably putting Archon of Cruelty into play. I don't really want to put Griselbrand into play against a deck that has Caracas. Alright, I'm going to go to 18. It's really, really, really important for us, yeah, see, to take game 1 here. What is this going to be? Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. My opponent has Chalice of the Void in hand and just had trouble casting it, I believe. Alright. Play Swamp. Thoughtseize. Target me. Discard an Archon. With one more land, I have Exhume. My opponent gets to see exactly what's up. And I've got to draw land. The Lotus Petal or Chrome Mox is acceptable, but it does mean that I can't do the thing next turn. Alright, there's a third land drop. We can see a White Plume or another Hate Bear come down here. Anointed Peacekeeper would be annoying. Okay, there's the Chalice that I suspected. And I will take 2 damage. Let's draw land. That's inconvenient. Like, my opponent's Chalice, which previously did nothing and was kind of objectively a bad play, given that my opponent knew my entire hand, has stopped my exact top deck of Reanimate, which was one of the only 1-drops that I could have drawn that I cared about. That's super inconvenient. It is what it is, but it's just very annoying for me. My opponent takes the initiative, grabs their basic land. I am totally fine as long as I hit my land drop. If I don't hit my land drop, I will just die to the Thalia. And, like, that is what it is. I'll go to 12. Cool. One's kind of a comedy, and I'm the star. I think I've lost this one now. So my opponent hits me for either 7 or 8 damage this turn, and has Trap coming right after that. Another Seasoned Dungeoneer. Cool, cool, cool. So I am going to end up going to 4, and then Trap. Oh, you are not supposed to play that mountain. I now know that you're a red-white build. Like, oh my gosh. You just gave me so much extra information that you didn't need to give me. I am going to go ahead and exhume this Archon of Cruelty, because I can see another card from my opponent, even though, like, I know that I'm dead. Okay, yeah, I have seen Mox Diamond. I think you avoid playing that if at all possible. So, Trap plus Seasoned Dungeoneer attack just kill me. But hey, maybe my opponent forgets about Seasoned Dungeoneer's protection. Or the fact that my opponent has 2 creatures and I have 1. Or that they show me extra cards off Fable. Okay. Cavern of Souls is not unsurprising. Alright. Solitude was something that I already would have expected. I am dead here. So the bad news is, I don't think my transformational sideboard is particularly good versus this deck. And we win that game 1 such a huge portion of the time. That's frustrating. I don't think my transformational sideboard's good here. I might play Dalthy Voidwalker just as something that can take the initiative and actually contest that. Like, probably pretty comfortably go down 2 Collected Brutalities for 2 Dalthy Voidwalkers. I don't know that I can go down anything more than that, though. And I'll largely fold to a Leyline. I don't know, maybe if I'm only going to board 2 of these, it's not just worth it, and I keep this as something that can kill a Hate Bear and discard my creatures. I'm not happy with how this lines up, but Initiative is the best deck in the format, so, you know, that is what it is. Alright, I will keep this hand, and we will die to a Leyline. This has turn 1, unmask my opponent. Turn 2, exhume a Griselbrand or Archon. Yep. I accept. We really needed to win game 1 here. Unfortunate that I have exhume and not reanimate. This is your graveyard, so I can't use it to take my opponent's stuff. Alright. Unmask you. Okay. I'll take a Chalice. Play a Swamp Pass. I really wanted there to be a creature there that I could reanimate if I top-decked a reanimation spell. And my opponent's going to play out all those petals. No, they're not going to play out all the petals. They're just going to play out 2 of them. Sure. Takes instants or sorceries, specifically. I think I unmask my opponent still. Entomb is not doing me any good. Take that last Lotus Petal that they didn't play out. And we are in top deck mode where their top decks are significantly better than mine. By, like, a lot. I'm hoping to draw a Rotting Regisaur, and then my opponent never sees a Solitude effect ever. That's the plan. Alright, Cavern is no big deal. My opponent's already on 4 mana. Alright, and this is horrific. My opponent has a 3/3 that will become a 5/5. The Collective Brutality isn't removal for that. And I think we're donezo. The game is going to go fast either way, so I don't mind playing it out. Like, my opponent is going to Forge attack me twice, trap me, and then the damage is basically done. Yeah, I needed to just draw a little bit better in game 1, so that the game where I was on the draw and I expected to lose anyway, I could play the JUKE in hopes that my opponent wouldn't actually board Leyline for game 3. Alright, White Plume untaps. I can Collective Brutality this Thalia, but I'm taking 10 damage in this turn cycle, and then I'm dead on board. A reanimation spell isn't doing anything here. I'm out of outs. GG's. Lotus Petal, Dark Ritual, Entomb, Reanimate with Unmask on my opponent. This is pretty ideal. We'll probably be going for a Griselbrand here. Alright, here we go. Unmask, target you. Pitching an Animate Dead. This is going to be an Archon of Cruelty situation, I think. I will take their removal spell here. Lotus Petal. Dark Ritual. Entomb. I could just take a Griselbrand and draw 7. I haven't even made my land drop this turn. But it seems like it's hard for me to lose if I just put an Archon into play. What's the clock change here? 9 versus 8. Still a 3-turn clock. I guess Animate Dead is a little better than Archon then. I draw like a Thoughtseize specifically afterwards. Alright. See what my opponent discards. The Chrome Mox down. Wanted them to discard a creature. They probably will. Like, by keeping this Reanimate in my hand and decreasing my clock slightly, I make it so that I'm somewhat likely to end up getting a White Plume Adventurer of my own. I don't like this matchup, though. I feel like my deck doesn't line up well versus my opponent's deck. Alright, there's a White Plume under there. There's City. And my opponent is going to go ahead and play a Thalia, which is going to die when my Archon attacks. Alright, Entomb is a reasonable draw. We'll see what I do here. There goes Thalia. There goes an Ancient Tomb. Oh, this is gross. This turn's so good. Holy crap. So, unmask, target my opponent, take their White Plume Adventurer. I wanted to reanimate that. Alright, now we've won the game where we were on the play, which is really important. Now we can try this whole 15-card sideboard thing, and then try to go back to Reanimator in game 3. So that's these 8 cards out, plus Exhume, plus Entomb, 15-card transformational sideboard package in. Okay. This hand is awkward versus a Chalice on 0, or a Thalia on turn 1. If one of those two things doesn't happen, I can do something like unmask, pitching Collective Brutality, take an initiative creature from you, play this, pitch like an Animate Dead, reanimate an initiative creature. I think I'm on board with this degree of risk. Like, I think my opponent is good enough at this matchup that I'm scared, and I would like to attempt to high roll. Okay. Please don't Thalia me. Chalice on 1 is annoying, but I still have Animate Dead. Chalice on 0 beats me. That's rough. Unmask, target you. Pitch a Collective Brutality. Okay. So the good news is my opponent has no threat currently. The bad news is I have no mana currently, and I need 2 mana to make my play towards winning this game. Alright. Tapped land. We're chilling. Rough. I still do not regret this choice. And let's see where this goes. Nowhere fast. Nowhere fast. Can't even discard fair things here to, like, plant false information with my opponent. Okay. Now I can. I don't think I'm supposed to discard that yet. Because, like, that's a real win condition. Okay. I'll discard Reanimate, I guess. I knew I was keeping a risky hand. Alright. 1 land away from doing sweet stuff. A little awkward because, like, Touch the Spirit Realm is, like, very likely one of the cards in my opponent's hand, so if I reanimate this and it doesn't work out, it's, like, pretty bad. Okay. That's not great for me. My opponent will get their next land drop. I really need another land right now. Did not deliver. So next up, I'm probably looking at... Oh, they're going down the right side rather than Forge and Trap, which is interesting. Not necessarily bad, just interesting. Like, that says to me that my opponent values a Hate Bear more than they value just getting me dead. Not sure if I agree with that. Like, this is just so much damage. Yuck. Unmask, target you, pay 1. Pitch a reanimate. I guess I'll take a Lotus Petal. Alright, so we've confirmed that there's no Touch the Spirit Realm over there, which is nice for reanimation purposes. But I'm just kind of woefully behind at this point. We had a few things that we were bad against. We would have dodged Leyline. Oh, good. This is actively good for me. This shows my opponent that I have these Dalthy Voidwalkers, which is something that I do want them to see. Alright, they're taking an Edict. I get hit for 5. Then I get hit for 8. Then I'm dead. So I don't think Dalthy Voidwalker or Sudden Edict at this point meaningfully get me out of this situation. I'm going to go ahead and concede here after I look at my draw and just make sure I'm not wrong. Alright. Am I playing the Reanimator plan, or am I playing the man plan? If I play the Reanimator plan and my opponent just has an opening Leyline, I think I'm just dead. I think I'm gonna run this back. I don't feel good about this matchup. But I'm gonna keep this configuration and try to reanimate their initiative creatures some portion of the time. This hand is going to be a keep. Mulligan deep to a Leyline. Wow, my opponent kept their 7. I think I Thoughtseize them rather than play Dalthy Voidwalker immediately. If I play Dalthy Voidwalker immediately, my Thoughtseize Animate Dead gets significantly worse. But let's see what I can take. Fuck. Fairies. That's annoying. I'll be taking the White Plume here and putting that into their graveyard. But Fairy over Surgical is kind of a big deal here. I'm going to Chrome Mox. I'm going to imprint the Animate Dead since my opponent does have multiple fairies. And the plan is hopefully to draw a mana source in 2 turns to play Dalthy into Sheoldred just turn after turn. My opponent goes all in on Thalia here. They're super stuck on mana. Human. They also reasonably could play Chalice on 1 over Thalia here. Alright, they are going to do that. Okay, my Dalthy Voidwalker might run away with this game. Thank you, Thoughtseize. Very cool. And I think if I draw an actual land to just deploy the Sheoldred next turn, I will win this game. And every turn that I miss, my opponent's win percentage probably goes up 5% or so. Dark Ritual, rough. Hit for 3. Solitude's annoying there. Sure. Alright, I'm stuck under the Chalice for the time being. Opponent's also stuck. Well, these cards aren't doing anything else. Alright. Unmask, target you. Doesn't really matter which one of these I pitch. I'll take the Solitude. We're just trying to dodge my opponent's. Caracas is brutal. Alright. So this deck cannot beat the initiative deck. It's just not a reasonable matchup from the look of things. I don't like myself in the reanimation configuration, and I don't like myself in the fair deck configuration. So we'll see. Swamp, you are light. I don't know, maybe this keeps my opponent from playing cards on some turns, but like my opponent drawing Caracas very specifically is absolutely brutal here. And my opponent does know Sheoldred is legendary. I will take 2 from this Thalia attack. Alright, Animate Dead is very good here. I will crash in with Dalthy Voidwalker. Put my opponent to 14. There is 2 unknown cards in my opponent's hand. If one of them is Touch the Spirit Realm, I am in huge trouble. I'm still casting this. I'm actually going to take the Solitude over the White Plume Adventurer. I don't want to start this initiative game and then lose it. Doesn't really matter what I cast this targeting, because, Fairy just happens. Okay. My opponent takes out both Solitudes with that Fairy. Hey, there's a Fairy with a Void counter on it, though. I got that going for me. Alright, that is an Elite Spellbinder. Can temporarily get my Sheoldred out of the way. It's not like that accomplishes a lot. Alright, that is indeed the line. And I will drop to 15. We don't have a lot of time. I can escalate a collective brutality here. Probably killing Elite Spellbinder and draining 2. Target creature gets small. Drain 2. Cast. Elite Spellbinder. Target opponent. 1, 2, 3. Guard a card. Alright, that drops my opponent to 12. This hit drops them to 9. We've got Fairy and 1 unknown card. I can play an Elite Spellbinder if I decide that is a thing that I want to do. I currently don't want to do that. I just want to stay as aggressive as possible and just hope that my opponent finds no more creatures and also no more removal spells. I want to draw something big and dumb like a Rotting Regisaur that I can just put into play. Swamp is not it. I'm going to play it because my Sheoldred currently costs 6. Alright, confirm, 2 more to cast, 4 base cost, 6. Swamp Goat. Containment Priest. That speeds up the clock a bit, shuts off some of my reanimation stuff. They're dead in 2 turns to Douthie Voidwalker, but they have a lot of outs. Solitude, Touch the Spirit Realm, just playing something that clocks me. Land is not it. Although they could have a Seasoned Dungeoneer in hand, I guess. Alright, they've got a playable card. They're going to 4. 4-drop human, so that is Seasoned Dungeoneer. They've left Caracas up, so they can bounce my Sheoldred if I play that. I don't know that they are going to race this Douthie Voidwalker, though. Depends, I guess. Ganjo. That's brutal. That kills my Douthie Voidwalker after the next attack. That's very frustrating. Yeah, that's very frustrating. These cards don't really help with that particular problem. And I feel like I have played this one really well and played to my outs just so well. But the matchup is so absolutely brutal. Alright. Grab a swamp. Play a swamp. Use it to cast a 6-mana Sheoldred that gets bounced immediately. And then I have to figure out how on earth to beat this. I'm not going to have the initiative to forge up Douthie Voidwalker. And my opponent will leave up Caracas. Like, they will just leave up these 3 lands and be very safe. Alright. There goes that Plains. Alright, my opponent has an Elite Spellbinder. The Seasoned Dungeoneer trigger. Yeah, I feel like the top decks have just been absolutely brutally not in my favor. Caracas, when I had Sheoldred, was brutal. The Aganjo off the Seasoned Dungeoneer trigger when I was literal 1 point of life away from killing my opponent. Yep. I can draw a Collective Brutality and drain my opponent for the last point. That would be cool. That would be justice. Womp. Alright, gotta try. And here's to hoping opponent mistaps their mana and taps their Caracas on this. Yep. Alright. Land drop Sheoldred. And then my opponent just bounces it and I'm dead. That was very, very frustrating. GG's. Alright, I've kept my opening hand for the final round here. I believe we're 1 in 3. I took a lunch break in between rounds, so I'm not 100% sure, but that feels right. They're probably playing against an opposing combo deck of some kind. I'm probably going to play land, unmask, pitching, Agadeem's Awakening, and I might randomly get the Griselbrand out of my opponent's graveyard or something. So, let's see. Could be playing against like Show and Tell or Doomsday. Ooh, legit, it is a Storm deck. So I think I am looking to cast both Entomb and Reanimate on my own turn. That means taking their Thoughtseize, for sure. And then I will go ahead and Thoughtseize them beyond that. What happens if my opponent draws like a 2-mana tutor? 2 mana, 3/4 mana, 7 mana, tutor, 5. Take the LED here rather than the ponder. Don't want to end up in this awkward spot where I leave them in a way where they can ad nauseum. This does allow them to ponder into another piece of discard, which I don't love, because like my Entomb is very good here. But I don't know. If their next card is exactly a 2-mana tutor, it's very awkward for me to not have taken the LED. That was no shuffle there. Alright, Entomb. I think Archon forcing discard is better than Griselbrand, but it's close. Like, this guarantees 1 discard, and Griselbrand puts me at a lowish life total, which I don't super like. Alright, nice. So, how do I want to approach this? The important thing in this matchup is the discard spells. I don't think I have to kill my opponent with a big dumb thing. I think I can kill them with smaller dumb things. But I don't want sudden edicts in this time. I want to board in 4, 8, 12 cards. So my traditional way of boarding was these out, these out, these out. I have to keep 3 of these cards. I do something like keep 2 Entomb and 1 Archon. I can keep Exhume, or just getting back creatures that are destroyed somehow. I still have 8 reanimation cards in this configuration. I'm probably actually supposed to keep Entombs. Probably fine. All these bears are relevant in this matchup. Yes, this is a keep. A couple different ways to play this turn 1. We'll see where this goes. Oh, this is a lot of mana now. On this much mana, probably safe to attempt to Thoughtseize my opponent on turn 1. If it gets veiled, I can still do a bunch of other stuff. Attempt Thoughtseize. Yeah, this is fine. There is Veil. Thoughtseize effectively gets countered. Dark Ritual and Tomb Reanimate, or do I want a Douthie? I think I want to do the unfair thing. I didn't leave myself the big creatures, so this is going to be like a Sheoldred instead. Still probably fine. Could be Regi. I think Sheoldred's better, because this lets me just play Douthie Voidwalker next turn. And I've got kind of cantrips covered. I've got 5 damage per turn cycle covered. It's pretty reasonable. Maybe I should have left myself 1 large creature. Unclear. Alright, up we go. Good, honest, Sheoldred-based magic, which is what we are all here to do. Well, I guess it's what I'm here to do, is what you're here to watch. Alright, so we've got Past in Flames-based stuff covered. We've got card draw-based stuff covered. My opponent can naturally just storm us out, but every time I draw a card, that gets a little bit harder to do. Ad Nauseam is looking worse and worse very quickly. Alright, cool. Opponent's at 10. That was a fast shuffle on the Ponder. My opponent is effectively at a lower life total than they are showing here, because, yeah, that's right. Good stuff. Alright, so that was a 2-3 league, and honestly, the matches felt really good. Like, overall thoughts on the deck list, this one is a plus. Like, I like the deck building that's going on here. That said, I don't think we can beat the initiative deck. This is a deck that I wouldn't want to play right now, but if we end up getting some legacy bans and like White Plume Adventurer and maybe EI go and the power level of the format goes down a little bit, this is a deck that I would very much consider exploring again. I don't think that this is objectively a more powerful deck than Red Black Reanimator, but if you are trying to get people and you enjoy this kind of cheeky deck building, the sideboarding, leveling sorts of decisions, like, this is a really cool deck list. And the games were both fast to play and pretty fun to play. My decision trees were interesting, and I didn't find myself instantly just crippled by any one graveyard hate card, or any one hate card of any matter for that matter, because I did have multiple angles to get out of it. So I enjoyed this one a lot. Thank you very much to our donor for making it happen, and I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please click the like button on the way out. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please consider doing that too to support me, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. See ya!